diys-by-dar, and I wanted to take clay, real clay, and put it up against DOS clay, making a similar item. And this is part 1 of this video series. Now, I'd like to say that I was on vacation last week when I didn't have a video, and looking out a window at all the beautiful windsurfers and sailboats on the Grand Traverse Bay in Traverse City, Michigan. But I was looking from a cardiac care unit bedroom out the window for the last week for about 10 hours a day. So just when I thought I was going to get things back to normal, a lot of you know that I took care of my mother-in-law for almost 3 years, 24/7 here in my home. She had dementia. She passed away about 4 weeks ago, and just thinking I was getting settled, and then now problems with my dad. He is 85. My mom is 83. They live about 6 miles from me. So he has a cardiac history. He had a 5-vessel bypass surgery about 8 years ago. And that's what you get from a bypass, about 8 to 10 years. And he was having some trouble again. We went in and they took a look, and he was able to have 1 stent placed. But the second one they could not, which was sad because it was too risky, because that was in the LAD or Widowmaker, which was 99.7% plugged again. So we just are going to leave things the way they are and hope that the other artery they opened will do the thing. So time for some rest and relaxation with some clay work. Now here is a 25-pound block of earthenware clay that bisque fires to cone 04. And then it glaze fires at cone 0506. So I am cutting off 4 as even as I can slabs off this 25-pound block. And they usually come in a 50-pound box. And this is from Amaco Clay Company. And there's a few distributors out there. So I'm getting these 4 pieces cut off. And I like working off the block because the clay is new. It has been de-aired and spit out through a nice little machine. So the bubbles are not as bad as when you're using some reconstituted clay. So here I am setting the pieces up because I want a square piece of clay to work on. I'm just going to mash those edges over each other on this side, and I'll flip it over and I'll do it on the other side as well. Now this is my slab roller. I'm putting the other canvas over the top of that clay, and I am going to feed that end through where I can finally grab it and then start to turn that hand crank, and then I will get a even piece of clay pressed out in a nice even thickness. And I want to say I have this at 1.25 inches, but don't quote me on that. There's settings on that machine where you can put it to the thickness that you want. So there's my slab of clay. I've got it back on my bench. I'm rubbing it down, checking it over for air bubbles, because you do not want to have any air bubbles. The air bubbles, sometimes the more you work it, they'll come to the surface and you need to get rid of them. I have just a clean cotton cloth that I'm putting over the top of this slab, smoothing it all out, free of wrinkles, free of any debris. And I am going to take my rolling pin and I am going to start rolling this slab of clay. And you want to make sure your roller is free of debris, nothing on it, because when you go to roll over the top of that, you're just going to press that debris in and then make a big mark in your nice, clean clay canvas. So I'm giving this a good roll and checking it again to see if I see any air bubbles, and I do not. and I'm ready to roll over this with the rolling pin itself. You see, you have to get rid of those canvas marks from that canvas because it's left little indentations, and you don't want that. You want a really smooth surface to work on. So I'm rolling it again, and this time I do see some air bubbles. So I have the pin tool. It's just a little pointed tool, and I'm poking them all, and I am going over the top of them. And if they're really big and you need a little extra clay, just pinch some off this end and put it in there and roll it again and smooth it out. And watch your roller, because once your roller gets wet from moisture in the clay, your clay is going to start to stick. You need it to dry off. I have a tar paper form, and I set that on there, and just to see my sizing on where I was able to go with this piece. And now I have the form on there again, and I'm rolling it and leaving a indentation on where this clock, its perimeter is. I'm laying a face of a clock on there because that is going to be my template for putting my hours in there for the clock, and also helps me gear where I can put my foliage, so I'm not in the way of the little marks that I'm going to make for that. And setting my plant down, slowly working it. I see I have a little something sticking off there, so I need to snip it because it's not going to look too pretty. And continue to roll my plants in, straightening them as I go, trying to put them where I want them, and just basically really pressing them down into that clay all the way up. This was easy for these plants. Here is a little bunch of grapes that I did have from this grape bush, and I decided to use it. So I pressed those grapes in there, and here is a Queen Anne's lace. I wanted something to go up a little bit higher, so I'm pressing that down in. And then the final thing that I put on here just to round it off was some fern sprigs just to complete the design. So I'm making a circle with that pin tool because I'm going to cut that out later. Now I have these little tools. They were just like some applicators, and I had some old earrings that I like the shape of. This one has a little star in the middle, and I glued them in the end of this. And I've had these tools for 20 years. So if somebody came in like they try to and say, "What is this? You just need to throw this away." I mean, I'll put up a fight any day because these are important. And here's the small one that has the small earring put in it that I make all my small marks, because I'll go back and I'll paint these either with underglaze stain or with a permanent marker at the end. So I carefully remove that off with my fettling knife. And I am going to remove that little piece of clay in the middle where the clock mechanism is going to come through and the hands are going to attach to it. So putting the form back over the top, I am going to roll it back in again. And this one doesn't matter too much about rolling back over the center that much, because all of the plants are in there. But basically, I just want it to stick so I can go around the outside and take that fettling knife and cut that free, and take all the excess clay and throw it in the scrap bucket to reconstitute it for another day. So here we have it. I'm going to go ahead and take that piece off. It is ready to dry. The clock portion looks great. The plants look great. The form looks good. Anything that may look real rough, we can sand that off later. So here is the DOS clay. And this is about $9 to $12 per package. It is a paper clay and it air dries. So I'm probably going to take about 30% of this block to make a comparative clock. And when you look at the cost of this versus that big 25-pound block of clay, I haven't purchased clay in a while, but I would imagine it's probably around $15 to $18 for that block of clay versus the small package, which can be $9 to $12 of DOS clay. Now, usually when you throw clay kind of with a sideways spiral to it, you can get it to elongate, but this does not do that real well. I am just trying to get it wide enough so I know that this paper form is going to fit on there. And I think I have it. I'm putting it on my canvases and putting it through the slab roller, and here it is. And I have a smaller roller. I am using that to roll it out, and it is big enough for me to make a design with my template, so I know where to put my foliage. And then I'll go ahead and pop that clock face on there, so I kind of know my limits on where I can put my flowers and such, not to mess too much with the hour numbers on that clock face. And I'm ready to press my grape leaves and vine in here. And I noticed something really interesting with this clay. You can press it down really firm right down into that clay, but it is not going to really stick and stay. It's going to make the impression, and then it's going to come up and be loose. So I thought, all right, let's just go ahead and we'll get the impressions. And knowing this, once I get the design down, I'll try not to put any other pressures over the top of it, because you can see how that leaf is just loose hanging there, and you really don't want to leave it and then put the tar paper over the top and start rolling on that again with the leaf in place. You're going to get a double image. Here are my grapes. I'm going to go ahead and get these in. And every so often, it's a little treat. I find a little bunch that quite did not grow, and they're not going to make it for the year. So I like to steal them off that plant in my yard and make some grapevines. So there are my little grapes. One stuck. And I'm making the little impressions for the clock hours. And when I put this tar paper form back, I am not going to press it down with the rolling pin, because I do not want to obliterate any of that design on the other side. It's probably going to be a little bit more of a challenge to paint because of the impression, but let's see what we get. So I'm trimming off that DOS clay and putting that back with the other portions, saving for later. And here is the clock. And here are both of them. Here are both of the clocks. This is the clay earthenware clock. You do have to press down on these and make sure they stay flat. So that's the challenge for the next couple days. And here is the DOS clay clock, and it's drying a little bit on the corners. Now we have the Thrift Flip Challenge, hosted by Owling Dog and Statement Design Furniture. It is going to be on 9/22/24, and I will have a video up in this. Here's a sneak peek at the piece, guys. And part 2 of this video, I'm not sure when we'll get it. We got to get that clay dry, but like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Put the bell on so I can ring your phone when I have a new one out.